A lovely good morning to you, our viewers. Welcome to another exciting edition of the Camnet TV Breakfast Show, where we bring you nothing but the best of what is happening in our respective communities. I am your host, Miriam Kaimba. Of course, in studio, I am not alone. Today, I'm not introducing you, Zipporah.
Well, let me introduce myself.
Exactly, I'm not introducing.
Let me introduce myself to our lovely viewer that I am her beautiful colleague. Before here to start a very productive Tuesday morning with you. Miriam, you are just avoiding saying the word beautiful.
You know what? Basically, Zipporah, I told you last time that when we come on this show, I think I was hoping that you do the introduction, you know. I was waiting for that thing. But anyway,
starting next week, let's do that.
Okay, we'll basically do that. But anyway, I am joined by my beautiful colleague, Zipporah. I just had to say that. Anyway, Zipporah, today it's a very, very special day. It's International Day of a Girl Child. We know that there have been a lot that has been happening with regard to a girl child in our country. But anyway, this is a day that we need to respect them. I mean, to observe, you know, to celebrate them. And also, if you're a father out there, please take your child out, you know, for a date, ice cream and stuff like that, just to make them feel
Only daughters for today. Only daughters for the girl child.
Girl child, exactly.
Girl child.
Make them feel special. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we expect a lot for you today. So we're going to be joined by the Zambia National Traditional Counselors Association Programs Manager, Mr. Gordon Muchemo, to just help us discuss the issues surrounding girl children. And especially now that we're in past COVID-19 era, we found that during the COVID-19 era, most of the things are done online. So how safe have children been online? Fighting both perpetrators in the online space as well as the physical space. How have the cases of child sexual abuse reduced, or like how best can you actually reduce such incidents? So expect your calls as we discuss issues pertaining to the girl child and how is the future for the girl child in Zambia. But just now we'll take a look at what the doctors have for us, and just remember that you can actually come and sponsor the health segment. So join us on the other side.
My names are Ebedi Sadoki. I'm a public health specialist, and today I'll continue talking to you about mental health awareness, and we'll talk about common triggers of mental health. By this, I mean, what do we do that can cause us to have mental health disorders? So I'll talk about three main groups. The first one, I'll talk about losses. When we incur a loss and we don't handle it properly, it can cause us to have mental health disorders. So by losses, what do I mean? There's loss of loved ones, a close relative dies, or loss of property, employment, or anything that is so dear to our livelihood. And the other loss is also loss of a body part. This is in times where maybe illness has caused you to have maybe a gangrene in the leg, and then it has to be removed, and that also makes people feel sad. Some with breast cancer, when they lose a breast, it causes them to really have this trigger to mental health illness. Then the second one is about abuse. Under this, I'm talking about sexual abuse, including children, and gender-based violence. So if not handled properly, it can trigger an individual to develop a mental disorder. Then the third one will be substance abuse, which under this we have alcohol and other substances. So when not handled properly, when there's excessive substance abuse, it can lead us to have mental illnesses. So I'll give a few examples, like on the sexual abuse. I think I spoke a little bit more on the losses, but on sexual abuse, if somebody experiences that sexual abuse and it's not handled properly, this could be a child who might not even have a time to talk to an adult and go through counseling, especially when they are threatened to disclose. So they will be troubled by that, and in future it can trigger, if not handled early enough, it can trigger them to have some mental disorders and would have not known what caused it. It also talks about gender-based violence. I think in homes, some do not resolve the differences, and maybe they are not compatible, and it can cause the other one to abuse the other, and especially those who suffer in silence and do not seek help, they end up having a mental illness, a mental disorder, because it's just more than what their psychology can take. So these are also some of the triggers to mental health illnesses. Substance abuse, I think we know that alcohol, excessive alcohol can lead to someone also having mental health disorders, and especially the strong substances really affect our health negatively. Substance abuse, we know there are different types. We have those injectable, we have the ones that are smoked, marijuana and the like, taken over time, and especially starting early and taking over time without control, it can be the trigger. So I hope that we've understood the triggers, and we'll be careful when we see ourselves in this situation and be able to handle them effectively, and when we need help, of course, we seek it. So for today, I end here on the common triggers of mental health. Thank you so much for listening, and this is Dr. Sadoki. Bye.
So I hope you learned one or two things from the doctor there. She was talking about mental health, but also regarding issues of child sexual abuse. And so really there's a need for parents to just develop that relationship with their children where they can tell them anything. And especially that this ties to what we're talking about today being International Day of the Girl Child. Miriam, your thoughts on what the doctor said?
Exactly, Zipporah. Just like you have seen from the doctors yesterday, she was talking about mental health, and yesterday we were celebrating World Mental Health Day, and we have continued, you know, with this transition, and also coupled with International Day of the Girl Child. You know, it's very, very important that we couple everything together so that we can know how best we can keep our girl child safe. Yeah, exactly. It's a very, very important.
Yeah, we have a lot of things, sexual abuse cases that are happening.
And just recently, Zipporah, we rescued the girls, and yesterday we were talking about the same things. Yeah, so it's all have to do with mental health issues and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And just now, take a look at the money market, and just a reminder to our viewers that even the money market is actually up for sponsorship. Let's take a look at how the Kwacha is faring against major international convertibles. So we have the Great British Pound, which is buying at 17 kwacha 13 way, selling at 17 kwacha 65 way. We have the United States dollar, which is buying at 15 kwacha 67 way, selling at 15 kwacha 98 way. The euro, which is buying at 15 kwacha 20 way, selling at 15 kwacha 15 way. And the South African rand, which is buying at 0 kwacha 87 way, and selling at 0 kwacha 818 way. And so we've seen there that our kwacha in comparison to the US dollar, Miriam, is like 2 ways away from 16 kwacha on the selling side. It's more like just on the brink there. It's risky.
I don't think we want to see it at 16 kwacha.
It's risking to spill over. It's not risking to reduce, but risking to spill over.
To spill over, imagine. But yeah, it's something that we don't want to see. Yeah, but like you said yesterday, that the economists are now saying, you know, would rather it maintain at 15 than, you know, going to 10 or somewhere there. I really don't understand what they mean about that, but anyway, we hope that they can explain to us in details on what will benefit from this if we maintain the price there at 15. Yeah.
And Miriam, like we've seen, I don't know if it's just me, but I've noticed that the prices of buses have not changed, they have not increased. They're just the time when they reduced last month. We've not seen. Remember last time we had some wrangles where some people were refusing to reduce.
Exactly.
Yeah, but then that time they were more like put on an average price, and I think since then they've maintained. Even now we've seen an increase in fuel. I think even them they don't want that fluctuation in terms of prices.
No,
they just decided to maintain.
I don't think they want that. We always have fights with these bus drivers every day in the morning. You're like, hey, mama. But all those confusion. But anyways, what are some of the stories that we have for our viewers out there, given the fact that this is International Day of a Girl Child? And
Yes.
Looking at some of the stories that we have done previously with regard to a girl child.
It's quite interesting, Miriam. One of the stories is concerning the continued number of teenage pregnancies, especially in Eastern Province, where we've seen that, I don't know, for some reason, Easterners or Eastern Province has continued to record high numbers of teenage pregnancies. And these concerns have continued, Miriam, despite the free education policy. So the other time I was doing a story there with the MP and some other civic leaders, the traditional leaders, and they said maybe it's about the lack of schools in the area. They're saying there are not enough schools. If someone goes to school, they're not enrolled, they end up going just being wayward and all that. They just go in the community, start doing other things.
And so, also, the thing of when it comes to rural setups, you find that a girl child, not even only a girl child, but everyone has to walk a long distance for them to attend class. Maybe for a 1 hour distance. By the time you're attending class, you're already tired. Your mind is exhausted. You can't even concentrate in class.
That's the case we found, remember, in Mumbai, where they were walking long distances. They're saying, the class has already begun, but they're not even yet there. So how do you even learn? You're reaching when maybe just 20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah.
You can't even concentrate, you're tired. Before you know it, it's time up again, you have to walk back. That's why some people end up living in those places, and this has created the problem now of temporary boarding houses. Some people actually prefer to stay near the schools, and this again has raised problems according to civic leaders like MPs, because they say these girls are now engaging in illicit activities at these places because there's no one to oversee them. So it's all about bringing schools closer to children, making sure that they've got the necessary counseling and all that. So let's just take a look at one of the stories on teenage pregnancies, and just now open the phone lines and you can call us on the numbers that are scrolling on the screen, or leave us a message on Facebook as we discuss the International Day of the Girl Child. Despite teenage pregnancies being a concern in all parts of Zambia, Eastern Province is a major concern as it has continued to produce record numbers of teenage pregnancies. 2021 data indicates that the province recorded over 12,000 cases of teenage pregnancies. With the free education policy introduced by the current administration, one would assume that more girls will now attend education, which will see the number of illicit activities reduce, as more girls would now be engaged in productive activities. Patriotic Front PF Msanzala Member of Parliament in Eastern Province, Mr. Elias Daka, however, notes that this is not the case, stating that the problem of teenage pregnancies is still a major concern in the province. The MP has therefore reviewed that with the Increased Constituency Development Fund (CDF), he, along with other civic leaders, plan to promote boarding school education for the girls after the said schools are constructed.
Yes, so even in this CDF that has come, particularly in my constituency, we have put a deliberate policy to say we want to cut off on weekly boarding schools, because that's where our girls are very vulnerable because of the situation in which they find themselves in. Unless those children who are just from the nearby villages, coming from their parents, yes, we can allow that. But those who are coming just specifically to come and rent a house and be there for a week, then they go back to their mother's places. Those we are trying to discourage, because that is the point where, because it is free for all. You find a boy and a girl, they sleep in the same house. So it tends to promote a lot of illicit sex, and then pregnancies for our girls. And this can let our country not to develop, because if our girls are not developed, even this equity we are talking about, this what we say, the 50-50 ratio, it will not be there.
He has further called on organizations working to promote gender equality in the country to make specific programs for Eastern Province if to win the fight for gender equality.
No, it is true, the statistics are showing that in Eastern Province there are a lot of early pregnancies and early marriages in Eastern Province. But what I would like to say is that all these are coming with a background of no sensitization to our people in the Eastern Province, and these NGOs, they have gone to sleep, because like in my constituency, it's very rare to have such a program. You get the point? So going forward, I would urge NGOs, us as MPs from Eastern Province, to carry out sensitization program.
United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 5, to which Zambia signatory, aims to achieve gender equality by 2030, and the reduction of teenage pregnancies is key to achieving the same. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka. Quite sad situation there. We've seen that a lot of children, or a lot of your children, have actually gotten pregnant. And Miriam, if you see, even in these communities, that is what is normal in most places, like most of the unplanned settlements. You find that a lot of girl children, maybe 15, you see her carrying a child. That's not her young sister, that's her child. So you'll be like, that's her child.
Imagine a very, very quite sad situation there, Zipporah. And also, before we went in playing that story, you know, someone just gave us a tip and said, you know, some of the thing why we keep on seeing an increase in the number of teenage pregnancies in these rural setups, especially the increase, is because of lack of recreation facilities in the area. You know, what a lot of young girls would think of, young boys would think of, is engage into sexual activities, you know. They don't have anything they can do, you know, a place they can play and do other sort of things. The only thing you can think of is engaging into these sexual activities. Because school is far. Sometimes you can't go to school. You don't want to touch your books. You know, you have no place you can go to chill and have fun. The only thing you think of is doing this. Yeah.
So that's one thing which like we have to look at. You have to make sure that recreational facilities are available both in rural and urban areas. And not only is it good like for keeping away from unproductive vices, but it also increases one's intelligence. But you're not always just thinking about school. You need that time. It makes you a healthy person.
It does that. It does that. Anyways, let's go on moving forward to a story that we did in 2021 in September, of a young girl who is aged 3 years old. Now she should be 4, who was being defiled by her stepfather. It's a very, very quite sad story. If you look at the story itself, this is a girl who was being abused by the stepfather, and the mother was very much aware that the girl child was being abused. A very quite sad story. And you know, the most inhuman of this nature kind of a story that I did, you know, some of the details that I had found out was that the man would get a piece of cloth, tie it around the girl's waist, and then he would do the act to the girl.
That's quite sad.
And you know, he would also, when the girl tried to resist and stuff like that, he would beat her. So the time we were doing the interviews, talking to the girl, she had bruises all over her body. But anyway, lucky enough, you know, the good part was that we had different well-wishers who came on board. We had the social welfare who came on board, YWCA, who took custody of the girl and the mother, and also made sure that the man was apprehended and taken to court and charged and prosecuted for the same offense. Anyway, let's take a look at that story from Ngombe, of a little girl who was being defiled by her stepfather.
Childhood is normally supposed to be a period of innocence, a joyous occasion when parents treasure the lives of their children. This is not the case, though, with a 3-year-old girl of Lusaka's Ngombe Kasisi compound who has been allegedly defiled by her stepfather Shadrack Mwanza, 34. Not just once but several times. According to the child's aunt, the poor girl is further alleged to have been physically abused by the stepfather.
Tunatengera mwana janoenda naye pa clinic, Ngombe clinic. Afa tafika kujazona mwana temperature is high, baba wamuchitako inject uti yo kuringisa temperature. Pamucheckinga pamubiri upeza ina ma bruises, then no mucheckinga upeza tuzona ina doti yako yauti mwana amusebenzesa. So ni wale bwatuza ta endani mukachinyisa statement ku police uti si chani sikumumenya chabe but ali defiled mwana. As for us ba family, because mwana jani muono either ni tate wake si tate wake, mwana jani muono, and it can happen to any child. Muntu amena gwira mwana wa 3 years na mkazi ali naye si muntu wonka naye mu society ise tufuna chabe is better amangiwe ndicho tifuna because mwana muono ngina life.
The mother had allegedly reported that every time her husband defiled the child, she would wrap a piece of cloth around the girl's waist.
Penna bwera mwana kumcheckinga and for sure ninapeza mwana gesi sinambelero kumbalamba kudala kumuyuzinga watate wake. So ananuza ta pamene tikamba patate wake bali kudala ku police. Andili ndilizo nyameta apekera ku police. Mwana pezeka na ma bruises kumkosikonsi. So peta inda ku police kuja pezeka kesi inangu. So bwani muone kapera mungatanze ko munjira iliyonse.
The child's mother, 20 years old, is presently nursing the victim at home. The woman, however, was not ready to speak to the media. She is said to have met the suspect whom she is cohabiting with 5 months ago. With her being pregnant, she wants the man who was arrested by the police over the charge of defilement to be released. She wants the suspect out of police custody in order to take care of clothes for her unborn child. The woman's demand to release the suspect has, however, incensed her neighbors who fear that the alleged defiler would sexually assault the girl again if out of custody. The community are demanding that the matter be taken to court for justice to take its course.
Timvera ati mkazi afuna saine bamuna bachoke manje pano ise still safe manebazi ndabatiri na bana bakazi. So chinkala choti ofya guti uja muntu abwerere futi pano pa nyumba.
Kuti na mai wake na hivi aoneka nomo simaningi. So ise chametifuna chabe ni tandizo ya kuti uja mai wake na kamwana. Ngati kulitandiza memu ngatandize ku baboma. At least uja mwana na mai wake muwatandize ku.
Cases of defilement and child abuse have increased in Zambia. According to the Zambia Police Service Gender-Based Violence Report for 2020, the nation recorded 2,545 child defilement cases, 2,539 girls, 6 boys. That translated to an average of 7 child cases per day, or 1 case every 3 hours 27 minutes that passes. There is a need, therefore, by parents and caregivers, community leaders and churches to act quickly and address the issues of child defilement by making their homes safe. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Quite a very sad story there and touching as well, but we thank God that justice at the end of the day prevailed, and the man was, prosecuted and made to be answerable to the offense that he committed. And we also thank God that the child and the mother as well, the victim and the mother as well, were being taken into good care, into custody by a different organization that came on board to support them. But it was a very, very quite sad story there. Your thought on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so many people say we should actually increase or enhance laws on such crimes, really, Miriam, because that girl, that's tantamount to murder. Whatever is done to her should never be the same ever again in her life.
It should.
And you never know if he gave her some diseases and all that.
Yeah, and when the neighbors first got hold of the information, they were like, this child is being abused too much. because they would see the child with bruises every time when she wakes up. She has a sore on her face is swollen and stuff like that. So they were like, no, this is too much. The child is very young, 3 years old. You just can't be abusing a child like that. Even if you say, no, you need to discipline the child. No, you can't do that. So they took the man to the police. First of all, the thing why they took the same man to the police was initially to charge him for assault on a child, not knowing that there was another case of defilement. So after the matter was reported to the police, that's when they became aware that, oh, this is what was happening to the young girl. And that's how he was charged with defilement and later on prosecuted. And anyway, it's a very successful story, but all in all, it's very, very sad that such things, happened to the little girl, and she had to go through that, which no human being is supposed to go through that. A very quite sad story. But anyway, moving away from that, we also have another story in relation to defilement that we did on the 24th of September this year, Zipporah, from a girl who lives in Apollo, Lusaka's Apollo area, who was being defiled. Apparently, investigations are still going on. They don't know who allegedly defiled her, because when the matter was basically taken to the police, it was because the grandmother was physically assaulting her. She had bruises all over, and the grandmother was saying, no, initially, first of all, she admitted assaulting the child, but she said, in a cinema, mumenya maning, but the child has a cut. The child has a cut on his head. No, but she did the act. So she was taken to the police by the neighbors, and later on, the same grandmother was charged with assault of a child. And later, the good news is that she was prosecuted and sentenced to 5 years imprisonment.
That's a good.
That's a very, very good advice. But with regard to finding out who allegedly defiled her, because they later on discovered that she was also being defiled apart from being physically assaulted. So investigations are still on, and we are still following up the matter. We see where it's going to lead us. But anyway, let's get to playing that story that we did on the 24th of September this year on defilement from a girl in Apollo area.
This 5-year-old minor of Lusaka's Apollo area featured on Camnet TV on the 10th of September 2022 when a 44-year-old grandmother, Martha Moyo, from her father's side, was reported of having allegedly assaulted her. Her reason was that the minor vomited the food she was given after eating. After this interview, Miss Moyo was then arrested and detained at Kanyama police station on child assault charges. Zambia police spokesperson Ray Hamonga confirmed of the case being forwarded to the National Prosecution Authority on the 21st of September 2022. In a surprising turn of event, it has been discovered that the minor was not only physically assaulted but sexually abused. Her grandmother from her mother's side now explains to Camnet TV of how she later learned that the child was defiled too.
Mchecking manje ku after banuza kuti yo mwana mchecking ene manje kwa mene kwenza unkala ku baneba. So after kumchecking manje mwana ndio pesa zona mwana ukanonongeka na bwana itakona ndaita nakona bakulu ba mai palini. Mayo bwana mchecking zona ene niko na bana batu mwana kumwena lili awe simwa mwene mwana funi konkalira. Ndipo anabwira ba mai manje kwamba chia uyu mwana mwa bantu nzo muyuzinga. Ndipo anatumira ba police mverani venta pesa futi ku mwana uyu ku private party school musha sindi mwene kufunika kunkalira. Ifingi mwana nzo muyuzinga. Ndiye mwena nyamukira manje wa polisi nokamba tikansi bwerano ku clinic mumpeleke ku clinic ba doctor mchecking. Ndiye mwena mpelekera zona wa doctor kumchecking azona mwana anapeza kati mwana benze kumuyuzinga. Ndiye mwene bana pezera ba doctor paka basaina vonsi. So vinasala manje kutona kamba tie ndani mkaenda isediza kutumirani phone vinufunika vitinyamuro futino wa polisi vende ku polisi. So ndiye mwene inabwerera manje pano niembekeza manje atizaka kuitana nchapede wenda ku court.
The most unfortunate part is that her defiler is not yet known and has not been arrested All that is alleged is that the incident also occurred the same time she was living with Miss Moyo in Kanyama compound. Human Rights Commission talks about the need to have strong legal protection for children, stating that with the recent Child Court Bill, much protection will be given to them.
Is to ensure that there's a lot of education that should be done among parents and also guardians, because most of the violations that happen to children happen within their homes, within communities, sometimes by close family members, sometimes by parents, sometimes by guardians, and that should be redressed through counseling and guidance, but also effective enforcement of the law where that happens.
Messi Chanda, not her real name, says she wants to be a soldier when she completes her school. However, still recalls the horrific scenario she underwent. No counseling is being offered to the child. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News. After admitting before the Lusaka's Magistrate Court last month that he sexually abused his biological daughter until she became pregnant and later bore him a son, 49-year-old Roger Nyambe of Linda Compound is likely to face not less than 15 years behind bars after the court found him guilty. The convict has been committed to the Lusaka High Court for sentencing, as the subordinate court powers of sentencing in relation to the offence are limited. This is in a case in which Mr. Nyambe was facing 1 count of incest contrary to the laws of Zambia, and during his defence last month, the convict, who stood before Magistrate Judith Chaika, heaped all the blame for defiling his daughter on his witch doctor. He had testified that with the consent from his wife, he started defiling the victim when she was only 8 years old. Now the victim is 17 years old with his son, who is 3. The victim was coerced into incest by both parents as a means of making the family rich. During trial, the court also held that the convict, Mr. Nyambe, did not plan to commit the offence alone, but an agreement was made with his wife after getting charms from a witch doctor in Chiwombo district. In his further defense, Mr. Nyambe, the convict, had told the court it was against traditional in nature for anyone to have sexual intercourse with their own daughter. However, what led him to such an act was because him and his wife desired for more wealth. In delivering judgments, the court has found a fact that the victim was born in 2005 and her father sexually abused her on several occasions, which resulted her to giving birth to his son in 2018. The court has also taken into consideration that there was an agreement between the convict and his wife, who is currently on the run, for the act to be committed so that the family becomes rich. The convict now awaits to appear before a High Court judge for his sentencing. The charge attracts a punishment of not less than 15 years. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Quite sad stories there, from all the way from Apollo, and another story that we did from the courts there, Zipporah, where we saw 2 successful stories, I must say, that justice prevailed in this case, despite the father, taking advantage of the young girl and defiling them. All in all, he was found guilty, and now he awaits his judgment before the courts of law. It's very, very sad that, imagine, as a father, you are supposed to protect your own child. You're supposed to be protector of your own child, and then you go and do such an immoral act on your own child. Imagine the pain that the child will go
and
through.
his passion is calling her childhood away from him.
Exactly. Though, imagine you start defiling your own child at the age of 8. Imagine 8 until she is 15, she gives birth, and now she's 17, and the child is 3. How do you even call the child that she gives birth to?
Your grandson.
How does the child becomes your grandson? Because it's you who has impregnated her. Becomes your son, of course, obviously. And
son and grandson.
It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense.
I think, I don't know, some people should be tried for mental, maybe he also up there, we don't know, because such an act, that's quite abnormal.
And
But then, like you mentioned yesterday, some people do it upon instruction of people like witch doctors or something.
Like him, yeah, he did it upon instructions from a witch doctor.
That would become rich?
Yes, that will become rich. And you know, the wife also gave consent, you know. And you know, from the testimony that he had given in court is that when he started doing that, Zipporah, he started seeing, you know, some changes.
In his life?
In his life, yes. He said plainly before the magistrate that, you know, things became well for me. He started, you know...
for you, but what about for your daughter? That's
for him. And, you know, he would sometimes wake up in the morning and find a lot of kettles on his farm. Where they come from, he doesn't know. That is what he said before.
So in fact, he's a ritualist.
And he started having a lot of money, but I really don't know why he did wrong and stuff like that, but all went to...
And that's how it is. If
like
something is not given through clean means, it always comes crumbling down.
Yeah, exactly. But all in all, big ups to the elder brother of the young lady who said, no, this an act. When he found out the matter, he said, no, this cannot continue to happen to my younger sister. And then he reported the matter to the police. And then the father now was being pounced on by the police and now taken to court and tried. And that's why we saw him being convicted now. So we await a sentence from the High Court. I don't know how many years he'll be given, but in most cases that I've covered before, in such cases, you'll find that maybe it will be 25 years and above. Sometimes it's even 50 years and above. Life in prison.
Yeah, Miriam, that's quite sad. Anyway, so just looking at the second quarter statistics for gender-based violence from the Zambia police for 2022, and so here we saw that the cases of GBV increased, Miriam, from last year. So here they're saying a total of 7,589 cases of GBV were reported countrywide in the second quarter, compared to 6,148 in the second quarter, indicating an increase by 1,441 cases. Miriam, we saw an increase this year in comparison to last year. And so really we're seeing that Lusaka recorded the highest cases, and among these were, out of these were 1,393 girls who were sexually abused. So Miriam, like where are we missing? What's the missing link? Is it maybe the churches talk about this? Is there enough sensitization in communities? Do people even know where to report?
Yeah.
Because most people don't report some of these issues, Miriam, because they're scared, like you said, that they will not have shelter, they will not have food. But really, if you know that there's some NGOs out there who are able to provide shelter and food, I'm sure I would see a lot of people reporting these issues.
And you know, I just don't know what is happening, Zipporah, but we have seen a lot of different stakeholders, NGOs coming on board, you know, coming strongly against such vices. But we have continued, like you mentioned from the report there, you know, we have seen an increase.
What is over 1,000.
What is it that, you know, that's a huge number. What is it that we're not doing? Right, exactly. Does it mean that we should also now, you know, go into churches, you know, start preaching about this as we give our messages, as we give our sermons and stuff like that? You know, Sunday school, when the kids go to Sunday school, should they be taught about these things, you know? I think personally that this also should be done. I think it will help, you know, change our society. But all in all, like you said, sometimes it has to do with the mental capacity, the mentality of someone. You know, a lot of people, I think, trust me, I don't know. You know, because you're depressed, you want to, you know, put the other act on someone. It doesn't just serve right. It doesn't.
We need exorcism. But anyway, me, I also have some comments from our Facebook viewers who say, sad thing that her father did to her. Some are saying watching from Kitwe, Ndola. Yeah, but then there's this comment which says, sad what her father did to her. Maybe, so there are two stories, isn't it? There's one for the stepfather and there's this one. Maybe they're talking about this one. Yeah,
I'm sure they're relating to the story of the earlier story we played from the girl in Ngombe compound, who was 3 years old, was being defiled by the stepfather.
Yes, and I'm talking about International Day of the Daughter. This brings us back to something that is of recent occurrence, the issue of the 13 abducted girls. Really, like, what best way do you feel that these can be helped to make sure that they recover?
Basically, Zipporah, like we mentioned yesterday, these girls are already, receiving the help that they need. They're going through a healing process by receiving counseling from, expert, qualified medical doctors. And also, the ministry has come on board also to ensure that they receive the much needed help and protection as well. But all in all, Zipporah, I think for me it would be wise for them to move away a bit from social media. If it won't be good for them right now. Going through some pictures, some posts, and then seeing the comments and stuff like that. I think they'll be reminded of what the trauma, the tragic scenario that they went through during the time they were kidnapped and held captive. So for me, I think them moving away from social media, I think that may be recommended by the medical doctors who are giving them this counseling process to, move away from the social media life and also just concentrate on your healing process so that when you come out in public, you are already healed. Yeah.
Yes, I actually read on social media this morning where it was saying 3 of the girls are in good spirits. So I think that's some good news there. Was saying that they're recovering, and but then I can tell there's no recovery permanent. It's just you improve, but that's more like a scar.
In a long
but with
time,
spiritual counseling, I'm sure the pastors out there, I'm sure the girls could significantly improve.
Definitely, and healing, it's a process. It's not something that you would expect them in 3 weeks for them to change and completely forget what they went through. No, it's a process, and they'll need some time to completely heal. Yeah,
so you can call us on the numbers that are scrolling on the screen, or leave us a message on Facebook as we commemorate the International Day of the Girl Child. How are the numbers of sexual gender-based violence in the country, and overall, what solution would you like to see towards the same?
Yep. International Day of a Girl Child. The observation support more opportunity for a girl child and increase awareness of gender inequality. Exactly, Zipporah.
And so here, Miriam, if you look at this year's theme, this year's theme reads, "Our time is now, our rights, our future." And so this also goes in line with the Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, which want to achieve gender equality. So that's SDG number 5, gender equality by 2030. And so this is how many years from now? 8 years, 7 years now. We are going to 7 years and some months remaining before 2030. But looking at the current happenings, we've just been told that the cases of GBV have increased by over 1,000. Are we on the right track as a country? Do we have the right policy instruments to help us achieve this?
And when you talk about, 2030, it looks like a long period.
They made them in 2015, so they're like, by 2030.
And then when you get to look at it, like, it's just like 8 years to go for us to reach 2030. But basically, Zipporah, if we look at the statistics, the current statistics that we keep on recording, and if we don't change, we don't see a reduction, trust me, we are not heading in the right direction as a country. Because I don't think, in as much as we have policies being put in place, stiffer laws being put in place, I don't see much being done, because we have heard stories. Zipporah, you have covered stories where a girl has been raped, a girl has been defiled, and later on, if the
perpetrator has been released.
What does that tell you?
And that reminds me of the story we did from Shantumbu, where they paid some goats?
Yes,
they paid some goats.
And the sad part about that young lady, it was in public domain, that young lady died. She was raped, she was defiled, not even raped because she was still a minor, she was defiled by 3 men. And before she died, she pointed at the men. She said this and this and this. It's him and it's him and it's him who did the alleged act. Okay? The guys were arrested, apparently, according to the information we gathered on the ground, is that they allegedly paid some goats and monies to the officer.
And you find that maybe that money is like 3,000 or something.
Exactly. And they were released. Is there justice there?
So maybe we need some type of training as well on the police to just build this capacity, because most NGOs focus on like doing these media trainings just to teach us about how to report on this and that. But I think all wings, for example, of the police, and they also need that kind of education. What are some of the implications of child abuse?
They do engage the police. They do engage the police at sometimes, but I think police officers who are found mainly in these stations, they are the ones who should be.
Is it a result of salaries? I've heard many people saying, no, police do a lot, the salaries are low. If we increase, is it, or it's just a matter of mindset change?
But that doesn't give you a right to do a corrupt act, something that is against the law.
Is it just a matter of a mindset, whereby even if you increase the salaries, as long as the mindset is not changed, they'll continue doing the same thing?
Obviously, because basically, Zipporah, you can't tell me no, because why I'm trying to release this suspect who is accused of murdering 2 children after defiling them is because he has given me money, and I've gotten the money, I've gotten the bribe because my salary is low.
And as a result, we are building a society which protects the perpetrators.
Exactly. What are you doing?
And they're giving them more room to continue perpetrating the act.
And by the time, and when you ask me this question, are we going to see change by 2030? No. The answer will be no. The answer will be a big no. Because if we're going to continue in such a trajectory, then we're going in the wrong direction.
And families as well, Miriam. Families need to stop this thing of protecting the perpetrators. No, don't let this thing out of the family. Don't do this. But forgetting that there's a victim out there. And according to like some research, Miriam, anyway, I don't know about, according to some research, they say those people who've been maybe sexually abused as children, they tend to do that when they grow up to other people. Yes. So it's just a cycle. So there's need for the perpetrator to be brought to book, and then for the victim to get the necessary healing.
And the other time I attended a training on different type of child protection and stuff like that, how to protect a child. There was someone who told us, one of the people who attended the meeting, Zipporah, what he said to us was, there was a case, he came across with, and then the time he started following up the matter, he discovered that the mother knew very well that the minor was being defiled by her father, her own biological father. And then when he questioned the mother, you know what she told him was that, do you want me to leave the cars, the house, and the what? Because if I come out, if I report your father to the police, I'm going to lose all these things. Where am I going to go to? And also that tells you also the need also the power to empower women. Because if women are empowered, they will not depend on a man. Okay? When they see a wrong thing, they'll report that to the police. But this is a woman who is not empowered. All she does is depend on a man. So what does she do? In as much as she sees the child being defiled, she keeps quiet. Because she will have nowhere to go as well. So she just sees the alleged act continue. A very, very sad situation. So there's also a need to empower women, ensure that women are empowered so that they can stand up on their feet and say, this is a wrong and we cannot have such in a society. Yeah.
Definitely, Miriam, and we need to also make an example of those police officers who are actually found protecting the criminals. If there's just one, you bring him, don't even hide his face. Just make sure you highlight him there as the media and make sure that people learn from such things going forward. But Miriam, really, the issue is about coming up with strong policies, because even and implementation, because in as much as we may have strong policies, as long as they're not implemented, we're not going anywhere.
We're not going
as a country, we have issues of early marriages there in the rural areas especially, and all those other issues.
The president has come out strong condemning the issue of early marriages. But we have seen this act continue, especially when we go in the rural areas, Zipporah. It's very, very sad. There was There was someone who was telling me over the weekend they traveled to, is it Mumba, somewhere there, Nega somewhere there, where young girls as early as 12 years old, they are being, you know, taken off, sent off into these marriages.
12 years?
Yeah.
That's a child.
That's a child. That's a child. That's a minor, you know. At 12, you need to go to school. You haven't even reached your puberty yet. Okay? You need to go to school. You need to focus. You need to build your future. But if someone is going to take you to marriage and send you off, and most of the time, what we discovered was that, you know, the reason why some parents would do this, currently it's still happening, and this is the same reason that we have continued receiving, is that because of poverty. You know, we say, mwana uyo apinki, sinza kwanisa kumusunga na wanzake pa nyumba wonsi. Biu ikwela. You know, so...
But why have those children?
Let me just get rid of this one by sending her, you know.
Why have those children in the first
That's a
place?
very good question. Why have those children if you cannot take care of them? And I think there should be a limit.
They should actually be punished. You know, there's that law which punishes even parents who marry off teenage girls.
Yeah, there's that law, but you know, if you're going to have children and you cannot take care of them, there should be a law that will punish you.
So in China, they say, yes, they said no, you should have, at one point, but now that law has been lifted. Whereas, you know, that was due to population, but I think child should be emulated. They first, before you have a child, they assess your economic capacity.
Yes. Are you going to, because you know, it's very sad, and I think it's a sin. Why bring a child into this earth and then you fail to take care of them? You will now turn them to be street kids. You now turn them to be victims of different sexual exploitation. That is not what we want to see. Yeah.
And I just now take a short break as we get ready to transition into the main discussion. But do stay tuned in and remember to keep engaging us through the phone lines and through the numbers that are scrolling on the screen as we discuss the International Day of the Girl Child, bordering on issues such as gender-based violence and child sexual abuse. So join us after this short break.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Rain Glow, your smart irrigation partner.
5 months down the line, the case of Beatrice Muloya, a 14-year-old girl of Chief Chisopola's village of Shantumbu in Kafua district, Lusaka province, who was allegedly defiled by 3 men, has gone cold, leaving the family question law enforcement agencies. At only 14, Beatrice's life was cut short following the alleged incident that occurred on the 26th of January 2022. She was defiled by 3 men. It took some time for her parents to find out that her vagina had started rotting from wounds and fistula. She was taken to the University Teaching Hospital, but it was too late, and she died on the 2nd of February 2022.
Dr. Jenwala, she's the one that did everything. She explained to us to say, Anastasia, the child was in pain. The child's vagina was really bad, and one of her labia was cut. So she explained to us, she told me that my results wenzanawa pasa bamonga, but he doesn't know where he took them.
It is reported that after her death, the 3 suspects were first charged with murder and stayed in police custody for a good 2 months, awaiting court appearance. However, they were released on bond after the charge was reduced to manslaughter, a thing the family claims that the 3 suspects connived with the officers.
Natia sindeneze kubasonta mwine wakana mwalira ndiye ize kusonta babwera baseka ati banyamate bali pano tibasunga bati banyamate banavomera mushe maningi ngakusanga kwamene benzo muchitava opo muzi bako natia wasinizi wako ati sinizi wako wanatipeleka ba polisi ndiye bakambaka tizi wako wanatipeleka manje mazo kuli maparents benzi banabwera kuno kuchani ku polisi. Maparents babwera abo babwere baende maparents bajabana ni kubwera kuyamba kukana. Wina kukamene kapena wanamutirita bwanje bajewenze babwera batuze tifena no.
Despite having lost a child, this family now lives in fear as family members of alleged suspects are now harassing them.
Unafa mwana watu isefuti tisobe mutendere. Baja ndiye bali na mulandu kulisi. Bafunika bakatuona batiyo. Notice tiyo pebeva. Ngati ni corruption oke pali corruption bantu bamene bapaya muntu bachoka police bond. Chilibwido naise ngati ni police bond tikachoka.
The Non-Governmental Gender Organization Coordinating Council, NGOCC, has now come forth to help the family get the justice that it seeks. The organization board chairperson Mary Mulenga has assured the family that justice will prevail in the case.
If the police who are supposed to be protecting our lives are the ones who are endangering our lives, then I don't know where we are going. Then it's very unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate that the people who are supposed to be protecting us are the ones who are putting our lives in danger. This is a case that should be followed up. The perpetrator should be brought to book. Not imulusi omwana, and then your lives are now in danger.
According to the police, the 3 suspects were released on bond on instructions from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, who say they are still starting the docket of the case toward the offense of manslaughter. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Quite side story there that we have seen all the way from Shantumbu area, where a girl was raped, was defiled by 3 men, and later, she died. Very, very quite sad story there. And also, the most sad part about this story is that the 3 suspects who were arrested were later on released upon information that we got that they bribed the police officers. Zipporah, your thought on that? Earlier, before we went on a short break, we were talking about on the need for, putting in some certain different measures on not seeing this mindset, changing the mindset of officers who are fond of getting bribes from suspects. I know it's not all police officers, but we have quite some people who are in the police service and have continued to doing the same act. Your thoughts on that?
That's quite a sad story, Miriam. Where we find that the girl is 14 years and her life has been cut short by this act. Really, I think that's something where we have to set a strong example. I don't know, Miriam, there's some countries out there where They can even, like, I don't know, but that's regards to drugs. I don't know if that's Singapore or something where they have the death sentence for that.
Yeah.
And they don't even do, but anyway, that's for drugs. But I think we should adopt such. But here in Zambia, you find that the death sentence is on paper, you're imprisoned, right? But we find that there the death sentence don't actually execute. So we need such if those people are found guilty, especially the circumstances that the girl was in, that they made her sick, they made her maybe like get rotten or something. Part of her body started getting rotten.
Started getting rotten because she didn't receive medical help quite fast. So you know, the more she stayed home, and you know, I don't know. You know, we have. Again, it comes down to families. You know, as a mother, that your child has gone through this. Why don't you, you know, take it upon yourself and ensure that your daughter receives the much needed medical support that she has to? Because the mother knew in this case that, okay, the child went through this. And then you're like, it's because of everything. So I would rather keep quiet, not knowing that you're destroying the child. That life would have been saved if the child was earlier taken to the hospital. You see?
And me, I'm just now reminded of something very sad, you know. Like in terms of, that's why we should away from that. Like, we should always tell children like, to be, not to entertain strangers. I just remember that incident which happened.
Yeah.
Like there's this girl in my community, I think I was around maybe 14 then, but then her was like around 5, 6. And you know, it was really sad, Miriam, while this girl was playing in the community, and I thought that she was abducted by someone just there in the community, raped and dumped back there. So I found that she was playing with her friends, and actually my young sister was one of the people she was playing with. And so police came, interviewed my young sister as well, and all those things. So like, you know what happened to your friend? And like, no, she just went with the soldier who was passing. He just told her, no, it's like, I don't know, it's something like, I don't know, he didn't know where I was going, he pointed some directions. Then took her in the bush just there and found her and then dumped her back there. So, and from that day we find that that girl's parents stopped her from playing, she was always at home, but then the harm has already been done. So I think that's why we also need to like educate children, not entertain strangers. If someone maybe wants directions or something, just tell them, ask from the other people. I don't know, ask. So really, our children are not safe out there.
They are not safe. And you just mentioned about death penalty. So yesterday, Cabinet had approved the review of the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, which will lead to the abolishment of the death penalty.
What will be there instead?
The move by Cabinet follows President Hakainde Hichilema's announcement in May this year that death penalty will soon be abolished. Justice Minister Mulambo Ayimbe says the ministry has started the process of reviewing the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code following Cabinet's approval. So he was speaking when he officiated at the 20th anniversary of the World Day Against Death Penalty in Lusaka. That was yesterday. Yeah. So they are now trying to review the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code so that they can abolish the death penalty in Zambia.
But like you said, Miriam, you should not have a blanket approach. I think it depends on the family. Imagine someone killed maybe an entire family. Then you say, and then someone, I don't know. I think it should be like what the human rights spokesperson last time said, some laws need to be like on each particular case, not just like over. You look at there, you leave it to the discretion of the court, saying, how does this case look? What is the way forward? And I think you have to debate. I don't know.
But you know, again, on different crimes, the lawyers and the court sometimes would argue with you that in as much as someone might have committed a crime, they have room to reform. That's the more reason why we're calling it correctional facilities. That's why we call them correctional facilities. We have the president each and every year, you know, pardoning inmates out there.
And speaking of pardoning inmates, Miriam, I think it was an interesting discussion. Is it just about 3 weeks ago they're saying they need to be reviewing
who to pardon?
They need to come up with a criteria or something.
Yeah.
You know, we just hear like, okay, maybe 600 have been pardoned, but who selected those people? You know, that was the discussion in the political circles. So they said they need to come up with a measure, more like, you meet this, I don't know.
And you know, imagine, there was a time that, you know, someone was just recently arrested. And then shortly, they're on the list that inmates, they're on the list of inmates that have been pardoned by the president, and then you get to be shocked, like, how has this person hasn't even spent, like, a year in prison. How? What was the criteria used, to select these people? So sometimes, people have, attached this to having sometimes the power to, having a political touch on that, maybe a corrupt touch, like, you just bribe someone to, push you and put you on the list so that you can be one of the inmates that will be pardoned by the president. But I don't know, I don't really know what criteria they use, but anyway, moving forward, I think your idea, like you said, wherever stakeholders were coming forth and saying they should be giving us a list so that we know, okay, this was the criteria used to, to ensure that this person is pardoned, to ensure that this person has reformed. We don't want to see someone later on, after being released from prison, they go and commit the same act. We want to ensure that if someone is going to reintegrate in society, he has transformed, that person has transformed to a full capacity, They are not a danger to society anymore. We have seen people 1 year after being arrested, after spending 1 year in custody, upon being arrested, the person goes back to stealing. The person goes back to, robbing people, to killing people, to doing all these different offenses that you can talk of. And this is something that we really, really don't want to see. Yeah.
And Miriam, when we talk about issues, we also look at the traditional aspect. What traditional beliefs or practices are out there? Are they protecting the girl child? What is the girl child being taught? And when you talk about protecting, it's not only like protecting from rape, abuse, but also in terms of their education. Are the traditional beliefs, for example, teaching them that they are taught cooking and all that? What are they being taught when they reach puberty? Are they being encouraged to go to school? Are they being encouraged to continue pursuing their dreams? Or really are they just being taught, oh, this is how you cook this, lumanda, you cook that? What does that tell them mentally? So the other time I was talking to some stakeholders, these NGOs that are saying that we're actually reviewing these, they want to have like one universal book whereby you have a traditional counselor's book saying, well, no matter if you're from Eastern, Northern, or whatever, you just have one book. So that these are in conformity with gender rights, to make sure that they're in conformity with the gender rights, to make sure that by 2030 we actually achieve our goal of achieving gender equality. And then we do have another message from one of our viewers here who says, interesting topic, defilement should not be less than 50 years. Okay, you can tell that this person is touched.
Yes.
This person is touched. What's your thought? 50 years?
Basically, Zipporah, I would also agree with them because, when someone, involve themselves in such an act, that tells you that these people are ready to destroy someone's life. Imagine, Zipporah, you are 3 years old. Imagine a 3-year-old girl child. We have heard stories of a 6-month-old baby being defiled. What does that person... And these are people you cannot talk about dress code. No, she was not dressing properly. That's why I did the act. No. 3, 6 months, 2 years. Trust me, this is bad. And these are people who cannot speak out and defend themselves because they know you do anything to them. They're vulnerable. And yet you keep on committing this illegal bad act on the poor child, on the poor girl child. I think I would agree with that person that it should be 50 years, in my opinion, because that's a very, very bad crime. If that crime, sometimes people would, at times we have seen stories where some people would try to frame you that you committed the act, meanwhile you are innocent. But that again should be proven before the law, the courts of law. But if you are found guilty, and all evidence points to you are found guilty, please, 50 years is okay for me. Trust me, it's okay, because you have taken their innocence, you have destroyed their childhood time. They would forever think of that when they're growing up. We had a guest last time where the guest was saying, you know, when growing up, I was raped, I was defiled, I go through this,
and you know, she'd be killed.
And she was thought she'd be killed. And you know,
5 years old.
And you know what happened to her? Later on, she, you know, she had mental issues. Okay? She had mental issues. What does that tell you? What society are we in? Are we living in? Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Quite interesting there. So do keep joining in the conversation as we discuss the International Day of the Girl Child, and especially Miriam. The other day we were talking to this lifeline, Childline Lifeline, that's why, yeah, Childline Stroke Lifeline. What I was saying, during the COVID-19 pandemic, they were receiving not less than 700 calls per day from distressed children. And we find that this is the time people are staying at home, meaning people are staying at home, issues of sexual abuse, and they're receiving. But then, I'm wondering, this is obviously people who've got access to cell phones and all those things. Maybe they're using their parents' cell phone, their mother's cell phone. But how about those people in rural areas? Who are they reporting to really? So really we also have to come up with reporting mechanisms. Is a reporting mechanism within villages? But because you find that maybe the police post is far away from the village, it just ends there.
It will end
so
there.
what role are traditional leaders also playing in trying to...
And you know, Zipporah, not only, you know, we have, when it comes to rural setup, we have this tendency of where people would want to, to sit down. Okay, no, let's talk about this. Tenting Karipansi as a family, we talk about this. We don't want this to go in public. But issues of defilement, these are not issues where you can say, no, let's sit down, we talk as a family. Regardless of the person who committed the offense. Let's talk for real, why? Okay, we have done stories, we have heard stories about people saying, no, let's talk as a family. We cannot have these things go in public domain and stuff like that. This is not something that we want to see. This is something when you find out that this is an act that is going on, if you're a mother, please report to the police. Don't say, no, I'm trying to save my marriage, you know, if I'm chased, it's my husband who takes care of me, where am I going to go? Again, they need to empower women, and government is already doing that. You know, they have different stakeholders, organizations which are coming on board right now to ensure that women are empowered. Talk about women empowerment, so that women can stand up on their feet and say, in as much as they see these acts going on, they will not be held back and say, no, I won't say anything because this man is the one who is providing for me. They'll be able to stand up and say no to this. And you know, such stories, with regards to cases of defilement, the last meeting that I attended of child protection, I heard, you know, it was given that every month about 100 cases are reported at UTH. There's a place called the Children's Center somewhere at UTH. Yes, 100 cases a month. Those are reported cases. 100 cases a month. So every month they receive 100 cases of defilement, sexual abuse. A month, every month, 100. And those are only reported. Now imagine those who say maybe the police station is very far, the police post is very far, they cannot report.
Like in villages, Miriam, that's why you find your police post. You have to go to the boma.
Yes.
You have to go to the boma. People just live as a community, protect yourselves, the family. So you find that such things, when they happen, they just let them die down here among ourselves. No one should go there. Whoever will go there will be disowned and all those things.
That's something that we don't want to see. That's something that we don't want to see. And like you mentioned earlier, you know, culture also, we should also create this tendency where we ensure that we impact the rightful knowledge to our children, especially the girl child. We have seen many times where in this rural setup, urban setup, it's quite less, okay? When you're growing up as a girl child, you'll be told, no, your place is the kitchen. You need to cook. And then when you reach a certain age, there's that thing, you know, stuff like that. You know, they disturb you from going to school. That process disturbs you from going to school. In as much as we are appreciating culture and stuff like that, but there's also a need to advocate and preach about, you know, the child's right. Exactly, so that, you know, in as much as you are teaching them this, they'll be able to understand and know they are right. Yeah.
Yes, and we have another comment here from a viewer who says sanitary ware should also be made free. Your thoughts on that, Mia?
Yeah, definitely. When you, I'll also, bring it back to the rural setup. Most of the girls, I've done stories. Most of the girls you find in these villages, they'll stop going to school when they are on they're doing their menses. Okay, what does that tell you? It means that they are disturbed. Halfway of their lessons is disturbed because the time they are supposed to go to school, they're at home. They won't catch up with their friend. Okay, the teacher won't wait for you. No, when that person comes back, that's when we'll teach this topic. No, the teacher will continue, meaning half of their learning process is disturbed. So this is the reason why a lot of NGOs, non-government organizations, have come on board and advocate for free sanitary wares for girl children.
It has been ongoing for years. People have been saying it's either you reduce the tax or make them free. But you see
why should you add tax on that? Those are the things that we should be questioning. Okay.
Because exactly. It has continued to disadvantage girls.
It has, and it's a sad part, Zipporah, when there's a time I went to Livingstone in 2018. Zipporah, what I discovered was that in villages nearby Livingstone, you'll find that girls are using different types of method.
Such as?
A piece of cloth, cotton wool, others boxes, tapes, leaves. Yes.
Boxes.
Yes. And they'll get a carton, and cut something and then just use it. Plastics, they use leaves, just get tapes and stuff like that. They use different things. And also talking about hygiene and their health, we should also consider that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's something really that has to be considered going forward. But I think I do remember, although the government didn't explicitly say they were free, but they did mention, I think that was last year, on the International Day of the Girl Child, which the Minister of Community Development actually said they will start rolling out sanitary ware. So I think maybe as government they'll buy and they'll start giving to public schools. They said public schools. Why to see that? I think that's something that we have to follow up on here because you know year by year that these proclamations, but after the commemoration, what happens?
What happens?
I think that's something that we need to follow up on.
And if they do that, that would be a very, very progressive move because, girls who are in a disadvantaged situation will be able at least to attend classes and not miss classes due to the same thing, Yeah. It will be very, very good for them and easy for them to have these products readily available at their disposal.
The other time I was in rural Chongwe, we found that girls miss, like in a year when you put together, they miss about 3 months of school.
That's a lot.
About 3 months of school, and they're like, no, I stay at home during this time, I don't have anything to use, and so you find that the girl child is getting disadvantaged when it comes to school. Really, definitely. So that's something that has to urgently be looked at. So apart from government, this also calls for other stakeholders to come on board as well.
Yes, work together with government.
It's an opportunity for you to see, like, this is the missing link here. Maybe at this partner with some people with sanitary ware, I start giving out, that's a business.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very, very good and progressive move that we need to do as a country, and also ensure that we protect that girl child and give them the necessary adequate materials and items that they may need. And also not forgetting that today is International Day of a Girl Child. The observations support more opportunity for a girl child and increases awareness. If you're a father out there, this is the best opportunity, a mother out there, best opportunity to take your girl child for a date, ice cream date, just to appreciate them, make them know that they're very important in society, they are appreciated. Exactly. Most of the time we have situation where a girl child has been blamed, we have seen where they've been, gone through a lot, being victims of these different sexual exploitation. But this is a day that we should also, commemorate it and celebrate it in a way where we appreciate a girl child by taking them out for ice cream, Hungry Lion. Take your child once in a while, make them appreciate. Exactly, I can see your look there.
I'm so here with have from the United Nations, Miriam, where they're saying COVID-19 has worsened. Actually, they're saying girls around the world have continued to face various challenges in their education, physical and mental wellness, and they need to be protected against violence. They're saying COVID-19 has worsened existing burdens on girls and reversed gains that have been achieved over the years. So they're saying COVID-19 has actually taken us into reverse. So Miriam, come 2030, are we going to be told, I don't know, this is a report from the United Nations, are we going to be told that, oh, just COVID, I don't know, if we don't achieve this goal?
I think COVID will be also in play, Zipporah. COVID will be also in play, but we still have this period of time where we can, change things. 7 years, 8 years is it's more than 2 years. Yeah, it's more than, yes, right. It's more than, and in this 7, 8 years we don't plan to have another COVID. We don't see us having another COVID. It's gone for good in Jesus' name. It's gone for good, yeah. And this is an excuse that we don't want to hear. But moving forward, like you said, there's also need to ensure that the policies that we put in place are implemented, so that we don't have a situation where, we give excuses. It's just on paper and we are not doing the actual action. Most of the time we are good at talking, okay? But when it comes to taking the step, taking the actions, it becomes a challenge for us. Implementation becomes a challenge.
And the other time I was actually reading a UN report, it says about 40% of girls in Zambia get married by the age of 18. So maybe I'm not looking at issues of child marriage. This statistics show us how huge. Imagine 40% of all girls in Zambia by the age of 18 they are married, which means of course, okay, some continue going to school, but really that's people get discouraged to go back. Now 40% of girls are getting married by the age of 18, which means we are robbing ourselves of female futures.
We are doing that. But anyway, it's important not forgetting that thanks to the Child Code Bill, yeah, we'll see a lot of different things changing. We won't have reports of children getting married below the age of 16, children getting married below the age of 17, and all stuff like that. Yeah. It will be there to ensure that.
We're waiting for it to be made into law. Has it already been?
It has. So
it is now a law.
It is a law.
Officially.
It is a law officially. It is a law.
And the other time I was actually attending under the DPP, what's her name? State Council Lillian's unit was actually launching the prosecutor's handbook.
She's suspended. She's
suspended.
Yeah.
That time
we have an acting now.
That time she was just launching the prosecutor's handbook. And so this handbook actually aims at making it easier for lawyers to win cases of child sexual abuse. So it highlights all the key laws, like which law to court when you are cornered with this. And that's why I think such things, Miriam, like we're yet to see. I don't know if it's because maybe even we as journalists, we need to improve some of. I think of course sometimes we report even when it goes to court, but mostly just focus on, no, she's been filed. But then when the case ends, when the child is recuperating, do we actually capture that as well? So we need to show that, okay, justice was gotten for this child. So we need to show, the law took its course. This is what happened. The perpetrator was arrested. The warning to all perpetrators.
Exactly. And Zipporah, moving forward, when we talk about justice prevailing in these cases, it's quite sad. In as much as we can, make these numerous arrests on various alleged abusers, we have continued seeing the increase of numbers. This is a worrisome thing.
Is it any, police where you say some things can be happening but they're not reported? So maybe what you're saying is not that maybe the numbers in real life could have decreased, but the reporting has increased. That there's that police where you say. In reality, on the ground, it's different when it comes to paperwork, because a lot of cases are not reported. So you find that only those which are reported are the ones which are put as statistics and recorded as cases, okay? Now, those which have not been reported are left like that. And if you put the numbers together, it's more than that. It's more than 1,000.
Okay, it's more than 1,000. It's a huge number. So this is something that we, as much as a country, we are trying, you know, to talk about these acts and stuff like that. We also ensure that we find different mechanisms and ways on how we can improve this. Maybe if this law doesn't work out, let's try on this law. Maybe we see if there'll be change. Exactly. Exactly. Let's try to change and see on how best we can, you know, work on this thing. If we don't see change, why should we continue using the same method? Yeah.
Yeah, and Miriam, when you talk about that, last time we had the extension member of parliament, Trump was saying, when you talk about, there's some people who are taken to visit circumcision ceremonies, which time for class, or being taught these same lessons whereby they teach girls during time for exams. Really, your thoughts on such issues which have continued. Today being the International Day of the Girl Child.
Imagine, imagine it. Today being the International Day of the Girl Child, this is something that we should strongly condemn Zipporah, in as much as we are appreciating culture. But when it comes to a child going to school, please let us give them a space. Because these are the future leaders of tomorrow. We are not going to have the same generation this time around serving us when it's 2030, when it's 2050. No. People are growing old. People, you know, are retiring. Okay? We're having a new generation coming in place. And we want to have a new generation that is educated, is well informed, knows about policies, governance issues. Okay? We don't have to see a situation of where young generation, the upcoming generation, is only thinking about marriages. What? How are they going to govern the country? How are they going to participate and talk about the increase, you participate in governance issues, okay? Yeah, positively. So anyway, right about now, Zipporah, let's take a short break and we will be right back.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet Television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet Television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. Rain Glow, your smart irrigation partner.
So thank you for staying tuned in, and there we are discussing the International Day of the Girl Child. Just now I've been joined by Mr. Gordon Mukema, who is the Programs Manager of the Zambia National Traditional Councillors Association. Just help us discuss this program even as we go towards concluding. Welcome to the program, Mr. Mukema.
Thank you very much.
We are glad to have you.
I'm very glad to be here.
And today being International Day of the Girl Child, from the traditional councillor's point of view, how do you look at the rights of girl children right now? Are they being respected, or is there in any way that we can actually improve?
Thank you very much. Celebrating the International Day of the Girl Child, what I can say is, as a nation, we need to do a lot in terms of respecting the rights of the girls. There is a group of girls, the ones I would call out of school adolescent girls, who have been left out in most of the programs. Recently there was a scandal whereby a girl during a traditional ceremony was just picked by a man. This indicates that in some of our traditional practices, there are other practices that at this stage we should be able to do away with in order to respect the rights of these girls. It is really very important that we respect their rights as well.
Now, speaking of traditional ceremonies, we have the one from Eastern Province. Is it still there where girls go bare-breasted, or was that actually, like when you talk about these traditional ceremonies, like maybe what are some of the vices?
Thank you very much. When we look at these traditional ceremonies, there are certain practices that at this stage we should do away with. As Zambia National Traditional Councillors Association, we are training our councillors to do away with some of these practices where girls are exposed naked in public, some practices where girls are taught certain things that they are not supposed to know at that stage. Because in our trainings with our traditional councillors, we're training them that at the time of puberty, girls should be given appropriate information that will help them at that particular stage. That is information to do with hygiene, information to do with the dangers of STIs, information to do with dangers of HIV, dangers of teenage pregnancies. That is the kind of information that you give to girls when they reach puberty. Unlike what was happening in those days where girls would be taught about how to take care of a marriage. That one, we have discouraged it completely.
And by 2030, we are hoping to achieve gender equality, where we've seen that girls are equal with boys. Are we on the right track to achieving these goals?
I can say we have a way to go. When you look at, for example, let me talk about schools. You find that last time we were hearing ministers promising to provide sanitary pads to all the girls in schools. Look at the condition of our sanitation facilities in schools. They are just toilets for boys and girls. You will not find any specific facilities that are being put in place for the disposal of those sanitary towels. And that is an important step which we are advocating that going forward, let the government consider that in government schools, in private schools, in all these schools, let there be special facilities where these towels can be disposed of, because it is really an issue that we need to work on as a country.
In as much as we appreciate culture, we have seen certain instances, we have heard certain stories where, you know, instead of a girl child going to school, but they're told to, you know, to attend a certain ceremony, and, you know, that already cuts off their time to being in school. In as much as we appreciate culture, have we seen a lot of advocacy in, you know, in impacting this knowledge on mothers, parents, and traditional leaders to ensure that they give space and time for a girl child to attend school, regardless of the tradition that the ceremony that might be taking place at the time?
Yeah, thank you very much. In those days, that seclusion would take maybe 3 months or even a month, but this time we are training our councillors. As an association, our role is to ensure that these traditional councillors are trained so that these vices are avoided completely. They are done away with completely. A girl child has the right to education. So they have the right to be in school just like a boy child. But now when you exclude them for a period of a month or even weeks, that is not right. So what we are advocating for is that these trainings of traditional counselors should reach out in all the parts of this country. Working with the network on ending child marriage, we're coming up with programs that will be able to roll out these trainings to most of these traditional counselors. Because, you know, traditional counseling is not like a formal institution. It is informal in that it is information that is passed orally from generation to generation. But at this stage where we are now, knowing that the culture is dynamic, we have reached a stage where we need to regulate some of these practices so that at least there is conformity, whether one is coming from a Bemba, Tonga, Lubale, whatever, where there must be similar practices that we, all of us, as traditional counselors, should be able to hold on to. That will help our girls, that will help society in general.
As you take, as an association, as you undertake your sensitization to these traditional counselors to ensure that they also consider the rights of a girl child, how has the response been?
No, it's not easy in the sense that, you know, culture is something that it is so entrenched in us. That's why you find that even in the gender agenda, we still have some milestones to some miles to go, because it is so deeply entrenched in us, such that others would even completely refuse. But there is a way in which we bring out some of these issues. Well, the most important issue that we bring out is the purpose. Why are we doing that? Because there are certain practices that we're carrying on without understanding for what purpose was that for. Because once you understand the reason why our parents were teaching us those things, then you would be able to understand whether is it relevant for me to teach my child those things. This time it is the computer age. Our children are learning sexuality issues at school. They know, they are studying science, they know biology, they know how pregnancy takes place. So the idea of you using those old styles of teaching, where you tell them that no, if you sleep with a boy, your fingers will elongate, things like that, it's no longer, it doesn't hold any water anymore, because they are learned, they understand these things. So even us as counselors, we have to move to a level where we should be relevant to, as we deliver our teaching. These girls should be able to receive the message that we are giving them, so that it becomes important and relevant to them.
Now, we do have a message from one of our viewers here who says that girls in rural areas were not learning during Corona. So I think they're referring to the time when we had the pandemic.
Yes.
And you find that children in urban areas were learning like through online, but then those in rural areas, most of them had to depend on radio and all that. So maybe, like, how best can we make sure that even girls in rural areas can actually catch up now that we have the COVID-19 is gone, like how, or has reduced significantly, not gone, but has reduced. How best can these girls who are left out, like, maybe catch up with their fellows to make sure that we have this gender equality, whether in urban or rural areas?
Thank you very much. I remember at the time that Corona almost was going to an end, there was a system where the government had to reduce the holiday. Instead of 4 weeks holiday, it would reduce maybe to 3 weeks. I think it's very important that teachers in these rural parts of the country, they take some remedial action. Maybe instead of the children going for a holiday for 4 weeks, let them reduce so that these learners are able to catch up. Because it is an initiative of a teacher to ensure that the learners don't remain behind. Remember, when it comes to examination, it doesn't matter whether you are rural or urban. They sit the same exam, and at the end of the day, provinces are rated. Which province has come number one? Which district has come number one? So my message to you teachers out there, please can you take up some remedial lessons to make sure that these learners are able to catch up and be able to do well in future.
And even as we go towards concluding our program, like what takeaway message, or what is your message other organization on today's International Day of the Girl Child commemoration? What are some of the things that you feel like maybe these are the challenges girls are going through, and maybe these are the solutions we want? It can be in terms of policies or something like that.
Thank you very much. My message is that as we celebrate International Day of the Girl Child, let's look at some of the gaps that as a nation we have in our policies, especially to do with reproductive health rights, access to reproductive health services. We were talking about youth-friendly corners or safe places where these teenagers, these adolescents can be able to discuss sexuality issues. The issue of saying, let's not talk about sex with our children, is what causes some of these vices that we are seeing. So it's important that our children are given the information, and then they have also access to services. So I'm appealing to the government and relevant ministries to ensure that there is access to reproductive health rights for us to be able to reduce the teenage pregnancies. And also, another message that I have is to the parents out there in terms of issues of marrying off children. This time the Children's Code Bill is now a law, meaning that marrying children off is a crime. So parents, let's ensure that we find other ways. If it's poverty, let's find other ways. There's community constituency development funds out there. Let's find a way of accessing those funds so that we don't marry our children while they are still young. Thank you.
Okay, quite interesting only that unfortunately we ran out of time.
Exactly.
But anyway, thank you to our viewers who actually contributed by sending us messages on today's interesting topic, which has been the International Day of the Girl Child, under the theme, Our Time is Now, Our Rights, Our Future. So today is United Nations International Day of the Girl Child, meaning that all UN member states are actually commemorating this day, where they hope to see what challenges are affecting girls and how best can these be solved to make sure that Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which is achieving gender equality, is actually attained. So thank you very much for having stayed engaged with us, Miriam.
Exactly, Zipporah. This is where we come to the end of our program this morning, but please do make a date with us next week, Monday and Tuesday, the same time. For me, Miriam Kaimba, and my colleague Zipporah Mshala, and the rest of our technical staff, it's bye-bye and God bless.